Hi, I'm Joe Clark from Eclipse Rover. I get a lot of inquiries about how to run the control system on the Eclipse Rovers, and especially with the RPR HD Crawler and the SHR Crawler, because people have a tendency just to squeeze that trigger and wow, that thing goes out of sight really fast, run into stuff. There's a nightmare. So let's learn how to do that and learn how to run those controls today. It's good to have a side-by-side comparison of these two vehicles. On the left is the RPR HD Crawler Eclipse Rover, and on the right is the SHR Crawler Eclipse Rover. As you can see, there's a lot of difference in the footprint, but there's a lot of other differences. The RPR HD Crawler will haul 50 pounds, so you can elevate loads on that and without it tipping over, and it's got a lot more power and a larger footprint. The SHR has a 15-pound capacity. Does a really good job because it's so lightweight. The things they do have in common is they both have sensored systems in them. They use the same ESC, electronic speed controller, and they'll both crawl, and they're both pretty quick. The switch on the SHR is in the front on the top, and the switch on the RPR HD Crawler is on the front right. 99% of the time it won't make any difference if you turn the controller on first or the machine on first. But that 1% where something has been changed inadvertently or somebody else has used it, turn some of the knobs on here, is going to cause you some problems. So make it a habit to always turn the controller on first, then the machine. And when you're shutting it down, do the opposite of that. Shut the machine off, then the controller. That way you're always getting a signal from this to there and you know what's going on in here. Now, when you turn this on, you just grab the side of this. You can see there's little indentations there, and you open that up and it has knobs and switches. Now, although this says throttle reverse right there on that, it says throttle reverse. Sometimes that's backwards. So don't worry about it, just pay attention to which way it's going. You can always do, and you can do the same thing with the steering. You can reverse which way the servo works on the steering. The bind button, we're not going to go over that today, but if you ever have to change the receiver of the controller or the system, you have to bind the two, and that'll be in the manual. So you have the steering trim here. So what that does is it turns it controls the servo for the steering, so your wheels will align. So you can make it go straight, or you can make it turn at whatever angle that you want it. So you could turn this on and have it just go in a circle. And of course you always want to test that first. Make sure your circle is in the right place. So steering control, you turn that knob. Then you have the throttle control. This is probably the most important knob on the controller. Now the reason for that is there's a relationship between this trigger and that knob and the receiver, which controls the vehicle's speed. So if you have that turned up too high, the vehicle can go without you pulling the trigger, because it's receiving the signal. And if you have it turned down too low, you're going to have to pull this trigger quite a bit before you have anything happen. So you lose some of that control at slow speeds, but it's nice if you're going to go really fast, which in the case of these machines isn't all that often. I, of course, don't recommend putting a $30,000 camera on one of these machines and going as fast as you can. It's just not worth it. Put it on something else like a car that you have better control of. So anyway, unless you can afford to lose that equipment and the shot's that important, and you know, that's sometimes the case. Okay, so the throttle control, you can actually turn it up and leave it and have the vehicle travel without using this trigger, which is really nice if you're doing a long shot. Maybe you're doing time lapse or something else and you want it just to travel on its own. You don't want to have to pull this trigger. Another application is if you were on cables or pipes and you had the Eclipse Rovers attached to the Rovers, so you could do that. You could use this to get a nice steady speed, and you don't have to rely on your fingers. You can use that knob and then turn it back down again when you want to stop. All right, very important. If you're having trouble with slow speed control, check the throttle and go that way. The steering dual rate is the other knob that's on here. What that is how far it will go. And if it goes so far it's whining, what'll happen is that it'll wear the servo out. So again, what that does is how far you can turn your wheels. So if you want to be able to turn as far as you can, turn that knob until your wheels are there and it stops making noise. In other words, if you go too far, it's going to make noise, so you'll have to back it off. That's probably as clear as mud, but you'll get it. So anyway, experiment with all these controls before you go out and try to get paid using the Eclipse Rover. It's a good idea to know what you're doing, and you want to be safe, and you don't want to run that thing into anything or anybody. It's not really complicated, but a little practice will help. All right, so let's see what we can do about running the Rovers with the trigger and with the knob. Okay, remember the first thing we're going to do is turn on the controller. So the controller's on, green light, have lots of battery. Then I'm going to turn the machine on. You got to make sure the batteries are plugged in too. You hear that? That's the signal getting to the electronic speed controller. The first thing I'm going to do is use the trigger. So I'm just going to pull this trigger real slow. Left hand here, right hand here, so I can steer it. There we go. So I can crawl really slow, just like that. Just pull the trigger. Really slow. Pull it more. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to control it with the throttle knob right here in the middle. Let's get it steering a little bit straighter. See, those wheels are kind of tracking just a little bit to the left, so we can take the steering trim and turn that a little bit. Get it going back to the left a little bit instead of the right. There we go. Okay, now we're going to turn this knob slowly. Here it's starting to get the signal. Now it's going on its own. I'm not pulling the trigger at all. It's doing that all by itself. Turn the trim a little bit if I want it to go that way. So I can steer without the knob, this knob also. I can steer it with this. Just crawl right along like that. It's pretty slow. Now, of course, it's going to be different if you have weight on it. It's gonna just like if you have a pickup and have a big load in it, it's going to act differently. All right. So, in order to stop that, I have to turn the throttle back down again. Bring it back. Like that. All right, let's take a look at the SHR. Again, same thing. We're going to turn this on. And we're going to turn the machine on. I want to show you, this thing is pretty light. It's easy to move around, really easy to carry. And then turn the switch on. And it didn't go anywhere, so everything's hooked up right. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the trigger. And I can barely touch that, and it crawls really slow. It's a little quieter than the RPR HD Crawler. It's got a little bounce to it. That's just because the tires are new and it's been sitting in a box. All right, let's try it with the speed control, the throttle trim. You can see that's right in the middle. That's normally a good place to run it when you're running it with the trigger. So here we go, we're going to turn this and it's going to take off all by itself. You can go really slow. As you can see, it's going really slow, or you can go as fast as you want. That's about full throttle right there. Doesn't go terribly fast. If you need one that goes faster, we can put a higher kV motor in it for you. Okay, we'll turn that down, put that thing about right in the middle where it was, and we'll bring it back. Push this trigger up. You can still go pretty slow with that trigger. Takes a little practice. Okay, so we're going to shut this down. So again, do we turn this off first or the machine? No, we turn the machine off first. It's good to memorize where that switch is. All right, and you shut this off and we're done.